Hey everybody, hey guys, how's it going? ThomasDiy here, and today we're going to be setting up a Helium hotspot miner with an outdoor antenna. So with that being said, let's get started. All right guys, so it's finally arrived. This is the Bobcat 300. I ordered this 6 months ago and it's just showing up because of supply and demand problems. So when you get your Bobcat 300 miner, this is what you see inside the box. This is the packaging. And then here at the top, we have Bobcat miner do's and don'ts. Do place the miner indoors, use Ethernet for stability, blah, blah, blah. Over here, don't put the miner outside in the heat or cold. Install an upgraded antenna directly to the connectors, reboot miner excessively, turn the miner around, the antenna cable, I don't understand what that means, and then open the hotspot, which basically means don't open the miner. So that's more or less our instructions here, and then it comes with a troubleshooting guide. We have a foam mat, and then we have the actual certification card and warranty here. We have the Bobcat miner. We have the actual antenna, it looks like, right here. So this is the magnet-based antenna, so that's a magnet. Goes down onto the miner. We got ourselves some mounting screws. We got ourselves our power adapter right here, you guys can tell. And then we actually have the Bobcat miner. And this thing, guys, compared to a GPU, I mean, this is freaking light. I mean, I've picked up freaking modems and routers that are heavier than this thing. So this is a $500 basically Bobcat, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to get this thing set up and installed. So while I'm standing here in Lowe's, I'm going to show you guys a couple things real fast. Other ways you can mount your antenna. You can use conduit supports like this, basically, but this is really more or less too big here. These are threaded. You can just screw them in there, touch a pipe onto that, do like 2 of those on the side of like a 4x4 post or building. You also got these conduit adjustment support brackets like so. A little pricey. So those are some of the things you can do. Another relatively cheap thing you can do is if you walk over here, they sell conduit hangers, and you can take these things and bolt 2 of these on the side of a building, one like that, one up further with lag bolts. And these are only costing you like 98 cents right here, it looks like. So they're like $1, so they're really cheap. And you can bolt 2 of these on the side of a building and then get yourself a piece of conduit like that up there and then mount the antenna to that. You also got to ground it, so you're going to need ground clamps. You're going to need, and yeah, it's pretty straightforward to do with something like that. So here's all the conduit right here, and it's only, I mean, like $11 for that. You come up with something a little bit bigger, 20. You get like a piece like this right here. It's pre-cut. It's like $4. But yeah, your ground rods is what's going to kill you, because they're like 20 some dollars down here on these copper ground rods. 15 for the galvanized. But this is what I got here out of my stuff. So we got our wire here. We got our clamps here, we got some zip ties, we got ground rod clamps, and these are 5/8. You guys can go with 1/2 inch, but you know, it depends on the size of the rod, so make sure you double check. And then you got these clamps here, but this is just some of the stuff you can do. But yeah, guys, don't overthink it, don't complicate it. That right there is your conduit, but you can get a piece of conduit if you can't find an antenna pole, and just like I showed you, use these hanger brackets. I mean, they got hanger brackets in here. They're basically $1 a piece. You can put like hanger 1, hanger 2, just on the front porch of a house or something. If you just want to put up an antenna outside, just attach it to a post, or even take one of these pipes and dig a hole and just drop it down in it with a bag of cement. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. Now, if some of you guys are wondering how to put your hotspots outside, they sell these boxes in here. These things are expensive. That's like $44, $32 for a small one. But you can get these boxes like this. They're electrical boxes. They're fully sealed. But you can get one of these mounted on the side of a building. Put your hotspot miner inside of this. A lot of guys are taking their hotspots and they're basically putting them inside of totes and wrapping them up in trash bags, and that's not safe. So use a box like this. All right, guys, so I want to go over my supplies here real fast. So to give you guys an idea of what we got here is in this cardboard tube, we have our rack miner antenna. That's an 8 dBi antenna. We got 15-foot of cable here for that. We got an adapter here in case we need that for emergency. We got our surge protector here, and this surge protector comes with this pre-installed right here. And as you can see, that really just, there's nothing really there. I mean, look how thin that is. It's like really, really thin. So I went ahead and swapped that out with something a little bit more heavy duty that can actually handle a power surge. without shorting out, which nobody ever does that. They never switch those out, but you want to. We got this right here, which actually goes onto our rack antenna. So this is a kit here. We got a number 4 copper ground wire, 3 foot here. We got also number 8 copper wire, which will run from the top of the antenna down. Ideally, you would want this where it's coated. This is not coated, but we're going to use it anyway. We got some heat shrink, which we will not be using because it's not big enough. Even tried to do this. Over here, we have an outdoor, basically an antenna wall mount, which we're going to be using. That's going to be for our steel pipes. We got that clamp right there. There was 2 of these in a pack, which is what's already been attached right there. We got ground rod clamps. We got some conduit clamps, which we won't be using. We got lag bolts, which will be used for our antenna mount right here. We got some 100% silicone, and then we got some zip ties. Make sure you get UV resistant zip ties when you're doing this kind of stuff. And then you're going to want some electrical tape, wrap everything up, make it watertight. That right there just gives you guys an idea of the basic supplies that you're going to need. If we turn around here, you can see we got our copper ground rod right there, and then our antenna mounting pole. Now that antenna mounting pole comes in 5-foot sections. If you guys can't find it, you're going to have to settle for a 10-foot antenna. And what you can do is you can just use a piece of, I guess an 1.5 inch EMT pipe. Basically, it's basically electrical conduit, comes in 10-foot sections. You guys can use that. What we're doing today is we're going to put up this antenna mounting pipe right here, and that's going to be a total of 20 foot tall when it's assembled and stuff. But when I attach it to the building, I'm going to put the antenna mounting bracket on the side of the building first, bolt that into place, and then what I'll do is I'll stand up the antenna mounting pole, make sure everything lines up, works out. And then once I get that installed, I'll take the antenna pipe back down. Then I'll fully assemble that pipe so it's 20 foot long, attach the antenna and all the hardware and everything to it. And then we'll go ahead and stand it up and get everything hooked up for our Bobcat miner. Leg bolts are not going to fit in here. So what you got to do, you got to drill them out. Take your drill, get it nice and fast. Be careful because that drill, it will catch. Then once you drill your holes, right there like that, leg bolts go through. That one needs a little bit more work. See how that works. There we go. Look at that. That right there, that big lag bolt like that, that's going to hold your antenna to the wall. Now these little tiny crappy screws that they give you, you need bolts. Guys, I'm telling you now, bolts. That's a bolt. That's going to hold your antenna. It ain't going nowhere. That's a bracket on the side of the building. Does this little circle. Now what I'm going to do with these brackets is, because I don't really feel like cutting a half block and installing it in the middle of the wall, I'm just going to double these brackets up. So one break, 2 of them there, one on top of the other. But we're going to drill these out, and then we'll be able to go from there. I'm lucky when I put these brackets on, I go inside the build, there won't be no holes in there, right? There we go. There's one lag bolt on its way. Let's get this next one going. Just keep working it, boys. We'll get her there eventually. The next thing I want to do, before I tighten these down, I'll take my silicone, just put it right in there, right around where this bolt is. Need to do this on both sides. Last thing we want is I don't want leaks and stuff, inside the build. So let's tighten these down. Get this stuff all nice and tight. All right, guys. So the first mounting bracket is installed. Go ahead and get the second one installed, shall we? All right, guys, to show you what I did here was I took both of these brackets and I mounted them side by side with my lag bolts. As you can see where I put these vents in, there's a pencil mark there that runs along the wall. I'll put that there. So if I would ever put like a lean tube or a canopy or something like that over these vents to protect them. But the vents have been working pretty good, and the exhaust fans are running fine and everything. I got them turned off right now where I'm working here. But the one up top, it's still actually running, but they're doing really well. And I'm actually just using that pencil line. Now I know this is my top plate. So if I come up 1.5 inches, there's another one, and then another 1.5 inches. So 3 inches right there for those top plates. So basically I put one of these on one top plate, the other on the other. Brackets are side by side. This ain't going nowhere. These are about 3-inch lag bolts, and they're bolted in there. So that's tough, and that's what we're going to use to mount our antenna pole with. All right, guys. So we got the antenna right here, and as you can see, we've got it all put together. I got it laying up on the chair. We got our extra copper wire there. I ain't going to cut that until I get the antenna up. Our actual cable that runs down, and we got everything zip tied here. Now here at the very top, we got our rack 8 dBi antenna installed, and we got the mounting bracket on there that we bought here. So that's clamped around the top of the pole. We got our surge protector right here, and then we got our cable hooked in. I got my copper bracket here, and the copper wire is supposed to go on the back here, and it just pushes in, and then you tighten the screw down. I didn't want to do it that way, so I took the copper wire, brought it in, and I looped it. As you guys can tell, it's looped in there, and it just loops around, and then I tighten the screw down that way. That way, if the screw comes out or something like that, at least the copper is still hooked in there and it's still attached. But we got the copper wire going all the way down, and ideally you would want this coated, but it's not coated, so that's what you would want. But I got it going all the way down the pole there. We got the pole ready. I just got to trim all these zip ties, cut them off, and then we'll be ready more or less to go ahead and stand this up and mount it. All right, guys, we're currently in the mining shed, and we got the Bobcat miner over here. And the way it's currently set up is the power's plugged in. It runs down here and goes into our power strip, which is back in there. We got this yellow wire that plugs into the top, comes down, and it goes into our switch here. And then we got the antenna, which is attached here, that goes up there. And I have the antenna sitting on a metal electrical box, okay, because it's magnetized, right? So what we're going to do, we're just going to reach up here, unplug the Bobcat miner, so that way there's no power going to it. And we're going to remove that, drill a hole, run that out to our outdoor antenna, and go ahead and reattach the antenna and stuff elsewhere. I'm not sure how we're going to come in here with it just yet with the outdoor antenna cable, but I'm thinking we're going to run it through the wall there somewhere. Either it's going to come through the wall behind our security camera, or it's going to come through the back corner back there in that 2x4, or I'm going to bring it through the back of the wall. And I'm thinking I kind of want to bring it through the back wall, just because if I come through the back wall, that will actually protect the wire and stuff like that from the rain and everything like that, and stuff like that, and keep water from coming in through the opening and everything. So we'll just have to wait and see. But anyways, let's go ahead and get this cable run and get the antenna installed. All right, guys, so I got our Helium hotspot miner outdoor antenna installed. As you guys can see there, sticking up well over top of our mining shed. It's probably about 10 foot high. So I'm going to go ahead and walk down there. I'll show you guys the back, then I'll show you inside, I'll show you how I got my cable run, and then we'll go check out our ports. All right, guys, so we got the antenna fully installed back here. Fans are running, so it's a little loud. Antenna's up there, it's 20 foot tall. We got the cable comes down right here, and then we got the cable there that runs in, wraps around the outside the building, zip tied all the way down. We got it ground down here at the bottom, and that one grounding clamp, I'm going to have to replace it. It broke when I was tightening it down. It just tells you why we need to stop buying shit made in China. Got to pick up this piece of copper wire here before, yeah, I'm glad I walked back around here. So I gotta grab that, and then the cable goes right there through the back side of the building. I don't know if you guys can see that right there or not, but we got it all clamped up there, everything. It's good and tight. So now let's go ahead, walk inside the building and take a look. All right, guys, the miner cable comes in through the wall right there, loops up, comes right into the back of our Bobcat miner. We got a green light, so we know the miner's up and running. Yellow cable comes down, plugs right on into our switch right there. So overall, everything's hooked up out here. Now we're going to go ahead and sit down at the computer and take a look at things. All right, guys, we're at the computer now, and what you have to do as far as setting your hotspot up is you got to go into the Helium hotspot app. You'll hit the add button, you'll go in, you'll select a few things, you'll select your miner type, and then it'll say Bluetooth pairing. You take the little paper clip or pin that's included, you press into the back of the hotspot, and then you can actually sync your hotspot miner. And that allows you to actually go in and edit all your settings, stuff like that. It's important at this step to actually write down the IP address of your hotspot miner as part of the syncing and pairing process. After you get the syncing and pairing process done, all that stuff set up, you got the miner up and running. Your miner will basically be fully functionable after about 24 to 48 hours. It takes a couple days for it to fully synchronize with the network, and that's completely normal. The biggest mistake guys make is they leave their miners in what's known as relay mode. Okay. And the problem with relay mode is you don't get like the full benefits of the network. It's not functioning properly. You can make just as much money according to some guys. Other guys say you don't make as much money if your miner is being relayed. And typically relaying is when you're actually behind a firewall. So if you look right here, we're actually network troubleshooting. And this is the main thing that you guys want to do. You want to make sure your miner is not being relayed. So you come in here, you scroll down, and what you'll see is you need to make sure that it says right here, it says, we recommend enabling TCP port 44158, which is right there, 44158. So what you have to do is you got to go into your modem or your router and you got to actually configure it. Now, my home network is set up so that I have a modem and I have most everything disabled on the modem itself. And then I actually have a commercial grade router that's actually a dual WAN router, which means I can have two different internet service providers. Okay, so I use a router for basically my entire network. However, you need to port forward on both your modem and your router, which is very important. So we're going to go ahead and go into that right now. So first thing you want to do is you want to click your start bar and you want to type in CMD, which will open up a command prompt. Then you're going to type in ipconfig, so ipconfig. And what this will do is this is going to give you your default gateway right here, which in this case, it's 192.168.10.1. And for me, that takes me into my router. For you, it should take you into your modem or whatever. So we'll go ahead and do that right here. So what you want to do is you're going to go up here to your start bar and you're going to type in that IP address and it's going to take you directly into your modem or your router. And everybody's router and modem is going to be different, determining on what your internet service provider is. But you'll come into your control panel, it'll look like this. You'll have to log in. You'll go to your firewall. And once in your firewall, you're going to have to go down here to do what's known as port forwarding. And what you'll do is you'll basically log into your router. And in this case, I have Helium, which I'm trying to add that IP address, which is down here, TCP 44158, which I've already added it. So, but to give you guys an example to show you what you would do is you would come up here to the top and you would select the device, which normally it would be listed right here. If not, you can add a device, whatever. My host-2 is actually my router. So I would select host.2 being my router, and then I would come down here and I would punch in the application's name being Helium. And because we're actually after a TCP port, which is what's required, so you have like TCP-UDP, then you have TCP, and then you have UDP. We're going to select TCP, and then the port number is 44158, which is actually what's over here on our network troubleshooting, which is what they want open, right? 44158. So you would do that and punch in port 44158, and then it says dash 44158, and then you would hit add, and once it adds, it would come down here, and as you can see, Helium TCP 44158. Okay, so that's added. Now, to check to see if this port is actually working, what you do is you go to what's called portchecker.co. You would hit your current IP address, and there's a drop-down list here of different things you can check and stuff. That doesn't really matter. But what does matter is you want to punch in that 44158 right there, and then you're going to hit check. And it will either say open or closed. Right now it's saying open because I've already got my ports forwarded, right? So my ports are open, but for you, on the other hand, it might actually say closed. So what we're gonna have to do is after we get everything, once we add the firewall, like add the ports and stuff to the firewall, it should be working. It should say open, but maybe it's, you got a router like me, maybe you got a modem. So we'll have to kind of you'll have to kind of tinker with it a little bit to get it working, but you guys can definitely do that. Now, in my command prompt, if you guys remembered, I said my default gateway was 192.168.10.1. That goes to my router. Let's go ahead and jump into my router real fast and take a look over there just to see what it's actually saying. So 192.168.10.1. So here we are in my router right here, and this is a commercial grade router. This is like a $250 router, I do believe. But we're going to get into our router settings here. And once in our router, there's a few different things that we're going to actually have to do. So the first thing is we're going to go up here to network. We're going to hit LAN. And this is going to show me everything that's actually on my network. And the one thing you want to do for your Bobcat miner is you actually want to create what's called a static lease or a static IP address. That way, anytime you want to log into your Bobcat miner and check it or anything like that, you actually have that IP address. Now, when I told you when you actually went into with your cell phone and you use the Bluetooth to set it up, you actually want to write down that IP address of what your miner is because you're going to need it here in this step. So as you can see right here, my Bobcat miner is 192.168.10.52. And then I'll basically I say Bobcat miner 1, and then I add that and create a static lease. So what I can do now, if I want to go to my miner, I can just type in Bobcat miner 192.168.10.52 right there, which is my address for my Bobcat miner. And as you can see, I can actually log into the Bobcat's control panel right here. And you guys can actually see my Bobcat. I can check different settings. I can make sure it's performing properly. I can reboot if I need to. There's a few things that you can do right here and stuff inside the miner itself, but for the most part, you don't go into these settings and you don't mess with them or you'll screw something up, okay? So next thing we do once we're here in the router is we're going to have to actually go in and configure our firewall. So we'll hit firewall here. We'll go up here to where it says port forward. Once we're in here, what we'll do is basically the same thing. This router here, you have to save and update and stuff. I've already got my Helium miner installed on here. The port forward right there, you can see 44158. As you can see, it's for WAN 1 plus WAN 2 because this is a dual WAN router, right? And then it says any IP address, yada, yada, and there's no schedule, okay? So how would I add an IP address? So I'd come down here to the name. I would type in basically, Bobcat, right there is what I would do. I would put in like Bobcat 44158. The protocol, I would do TCP because it's a TCP. And then you guys wouldn't have like WAN 1, 2, but I have a dual WAN router. So I would select WAN 1 plus WAN 2. And then I would select 44158, come over here, and then I would select the IP address, which right there in this case is the Bobcat miner there. And then we would put in the internal port, which would be 44158, disable the schedule, click add, then we would hit save and apply, and then that would take place, okay? So that more or less is kind of how you port forward and stuff like that. And then you kind of come over here to check your IP address, and you would just check your IP address, and you'd want to make sure that port is open. So 44158, you would hit check, and it would say, 158 is open. If you didn't have that port, for example, open, let's say I changed it over here or something, let's say like, for example, port number 21, and I'd hit check, it actually says that port 21 is currently closed, right? Because I have it closed. But if you're wanting to make sure your port is open, you want that basically the port number is going to be 44158 for your hotspot miner, and then you can check it and see it's open. Now, I know some of you guys are wondering, how much money do you make? How much money do you make with Helium? Okay, so let's go ahead and check out our miner here, since I kind of showed you the basics to set up, but just make sure you remember to port forward, guys. That's a big thing. A lot of guys don't do that step, and then their hotspots actually don't earn any money. So this is my hotspot. It's been up for almost 30 days now. It's been up and running. We're going to jump to it here, and I'm in a rural area. You can see there's nobody around me. This hotspot down here, which is about 5 miles from me, it just recently came online. But you can see under the last 24 hours, I've made 58 cents. The last 7 days, $8.39. Over the last 30 days, $22. Now, to give you guys a perspective here, if I pull open a calculator, okay, 22.38 divided by 30 equals 74 cents a day. Now, in reality, I'm not making that. That was just because I got a witness. But on average, I've been averaging probably about 50 cents a day or less. Now, that might sound good, 74 cents, but when you talk into the fact that when I bought my Bobcat miner, I paid nearly $500 for it. Plus, I bought that rack antenna, which was like another 100, plus the brackets, the hardware, all that kind of stuff. Another 100, you're talking about antenna mounting poles, at least $100. You're talking about copper wire, grounding rods, all that stuff. I mean, give or take, I mean, just an ideal number. I mean, you're talking over $850. Divide that by, like 75 cents a day. Okay, that's 1,133. Divide that by 365. I mean, you're talking over almost 3.10. You're talking almost 4 years return on investment. That's ridiculous. I mean, that's mind-boggling. I mean, it is not worth it. It's really not worth it. So a lot of guys are saying, man, you're gonna get rich, you're gonna make $1,000 a month. No, you're not. You're not gonna make nowhere near that kind of money with the hotspot mining. And in reality, 75 cents a day, that's actually a lot. I've been trending, I mean, honestly, before that witness showed up about a month ago, I was making about 30 cents per day on average, sometimes less, sometimes more. There was one day I think I made like 20 cents or something, which is ridiculous. So think about that, right? But anyways, guys, with that being said, spending nearly $1,000 to set up a Helium hotspot miner is just really not worth it, in my opinion. I could take that money invested in a GPU and be making like $4 a day mining Ethereum or some other type of cryptocurrency. The hotspots are really just too expensive in my opinion. You can go out and buy a router and a lot of different stuff for, you know, $50, get a high-end router for like $100. These hotspots, in my opinion, they're overpriced. I mean, a Bobcat miner is $500. It should probably be closer to about $250 in price, in my opinion, or less. So I kind of feel in a way that Helium is pushing this manufacturing scam where they're just trying to sell these really expensive, really overpriced hotspots that they're actually manufacturing and stuff and getting rich off of to try to build this network that's going to be completely useless in a few years. But you never know. I mean, maybe the network will take off. Maybe it'll get better. Maybe Helium will go up in value. We'll just have to wait and see how things play out. But for me, it's not really worth it. And as far as installing antennas goes, guys, there's a lot of different ways to do them. You guys can use satellite dish mounts. You can use metal poles and stuff. I mean, the simplest thing to do is just dig a hole in your backyard, 3 foot deep, drop a 10-foot metal pipe into it, and then throw a bag of cement or concrete or something around it, and just fill it up with dirt and stuff and let that set up, and then just mount your antenna to that. It's 7 foot up off the ground. So, but most importantly, guys, if you guys are going to be working on a ladder, be extremely careful. Be super careful around power lines. If you lose control of that antenna when you're trying to stand it up, there's power lines nearby. It hits those power lines, it will kill you. Be super careful messing around power lines, anything electrical like that. A lot of guys get killed when they're trying to stand antennas and stuff up, especially when they're working near power lines and just anything like that. So you just be really careful about messing around stuff like that. Also, when you put those grounding rods into the ground, be sure to contact Mr. Utility. Make sure you don't drive them into like a sewer line or a water line, or even, in worst case scenario, a gas line. I know a guy who actually drove a grounding rod into a gas line because he didn't realize there was one there. So be really careful about that stuff. You know, follow safety protocols, you know, safety procedures. Be careful if you're up on the roof of a house trying to install these things. I personally prefer a ground mount antenna with a pole where you just stand it up and mount it to the side of the house. That way I don't have to get up on the roof, because you do have to service these things from time to time. It's not that frequent, but when you do, it's easier to just take the antenna loose on the side of the house, lay it down to the ground and work on it on the ground versus climbing up on a roof and fooling around on the roof, you know, slipping, falling, something like that, because you never know when you could have problems with your antenna. It could be in the middle of winter. There could be snow on the roof of the house and you're supposed to get up on the roof with snow. I don't think so. In those situations, that's where a side mount or a wall mount antenna works best. And I mean, guys, I mean, when it comes to the cost, I mean, when I'm saying $1,000 and, you know, you might only make a few bucks here or there, it's really not worth it at the end of the day to spend a lot of money putting up a big antenna mass and all this kind of stuff, unless you're in a really hot area where there's a lot of, you know, helium and you're making good money. But for the most part, I think most people can expect to make about $1 a day or less. 50 cents seems like the going rate right now for a lot of the hotspots I'm seeing, especially in my area here in West Virginia. I'm making about 30 cents a day, 75 with a witness. Now my earnings is slowly going up and stuff, but we'll have to see over time. I'll give you guys maybe an annual report next year or something, just to give you guys an idea of how much I'm making if you guys request it down in the comments. But with that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed, and you know, stay safe, and I'll catch you on the next one.